Amidst the chaos of the 7-day elemental wars, a hellish nightmare straight out of Game of Thrones that wiped out 3/4 of humanity, an orphaned child was found crawling through the battlefield, barely clinging to life. He was rescued before starvation could finish what the war started, but his mind was shattered, and he couldn't even remember his own damn name. The kid was broken, a shell of a human. But two girls, Lydia, a blonde badass with the demeanor of Daenerys Targaryen, and Carol, a pink-haired hothead who could give Harley Quinn a run for her money, took him under their wing. They treated him like he was their own kid, painstakingly teaching him to speak again. When he finally muttered the word Ray, Lydia realized it was his name. Ray, she repeated with a sly grin, making him echo it like it was some Stranger Things moment. But when Carol eagerly asked him to say her name, he smirked and called her dumb pink, causing Lydia to burst into laughter. The little dude knew exactly how to handle this walking chaos. For the first time since he got there, Ray smiled, an actual, genuine smile. Even so, Lydia knew their fleeting peace was a joke. The generals, heartless sons of bitches who'd make Breaking Bad's Gus Fring seem like a saint, weren't going to let a kid live among soldiers. When Carol found out, she went full-on Kardashian drama, screaming that she could feed Ray, take him on walks, and basically be his personal babysitter. But when they turned to Lydia for her opinion, she was dead silent. Her icy stare said it all. She knew their time together was running out. But then Ray, this broken, war-torn kid, looked at them like he was standing on the damn American Idol stage and was asked to choose his future. What would he do? That answer was going to change everything. She saw Ray hovering nearby, eavesdropping like some kid caught in the middle of a Grey's Anatomy meltdown. Lydia turned to him, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Decide your own damn future," she said bluntly, locking her piercing gaze on him. For a moment, Ray just stood there, but then he stepped forward, grabbed her hand, and said with trembling conviction, "I want to stay by your side." Those words hit her like a scene out of The Walking Dead, unexpected and raw. Without hesitation, Lydia took him under her wing, naming him her apprentice and transferring her legendary ice blade sorcerer divinity to him. Over the next 6 years, the military milked his broken powers dry, using him to obliterate entire battlefields like some twisted X-Men experiment. Meanwhile, Howard, a grizzled veteran with the warmth of a grumpy but loyal sitcom dad, trained Ray relentlessly, shaping him into the coldest, most ruthless super soldier in the world. Howard even swore on his life that he'd protect Ray no matter what. But promises like that don't mean jack in a war zone. During the final battle, Howard was gunned down right in front of Ray, his body collapsing like a heartbreaking scene from The Last of Us. The trauma hit Ray like a freight train, reopening the wounds of a broken past. But the horror didn't stop there. When Ray turned, he saw Lydia lying lifeless on the ground, her usual strength gone. That was the breaking point. His dormant ice god powers erupted in a blinding flash, activating the forbidden overheat spell. A colossal ice dome engulfed the entire battlefield, freezing everything in its path with the vengeance of an unhinged Avengers Endgame finale. Though Lydia was only paralyzed, not dead, Ray was shattered. That night, he knelt at Howard's grave under the cold moonlight, swearing with a voice that could have carried through Game of Thrones, for as long as he lived, he'd never forget the man who gave him purpose. A decade later, his name was legend, a walking nightmare to his enemies, but to those who knew him, he was the embodiment of loyalty forged in ice and blood. On his first day at Arnold Academy, Ray found himself saving some useless girl with massive tits from falling. "Sorry, it's my first day," he mumbled, trying to move on. But when she realized he was the ordinary transfer student, she screamed in disgust and passed out like she'd touched a plague victim. Things got worse when some guy, looking strung out like he'd walked off Breaking Bad, lunged at Ray, ready to throw a punch for the crime of being ordinary. Before Ray could swing back, a sharp voice yelled, "Stop." It was Amelia Rose, the daughter of one of the 3 top noble families. She shut the guy down with a glare and then turned to Ray. "Congratulations," she said smugly. "You're the first ordinary to attend this academy. I'll protect you." Her words sounded nice, but Ray knew better than to trust a noble's charity. In class, Al, junkie vibes and all, kept glaring at Ray, furious about having an ordinary among them. But Ray was too distracted, his mind spiraling with flashbacks from the war. That didn't last long, though, because Miss Gray hurled a piece of chalk at his face, exploding like a cheap magic bomb. "Pay attention," she barked. She went on to explain the sorcerer hierarchy. 5 classes, 7 grand sorcerers, and at the top, the Ice Blade Sorcerer. This legendary figure had vanished after wiping out the entire eastern continent. Ray stayed quiet, but deep down, the mention of that name brought back memories he wasn't ready to face. As Miss Gray continued her lecture, Al glared at Ray, silently seething. Why is a disgusting ordinary even here? He muttered under his breath, furious that someone like Ray could even dream of becoming a grand sorcerer. The rest of the class seemed to agree, their judgmental stares making it clear. But Miss Gray wasn't having it. She slammed her desk and yelled, "Only those who pass the entrance exam are allowed here, regardless of nobility." Her words silenced the room, though Al's disdain was far from gone. For their first exercise, Miss Gray explained the 4 categories of matter and demonstrated how magic worked by processing the world's data code. With a wave of her hand, she manifested a bouquet of crystal roses, stunning the class. "These are the fundamentals of magic," she said before erasing them with ease. When a student asked if she had used anti-material code, Gray revealed that such magic was impossible. No one in the world could wield it. She then instructed the class to practice summoning crystal roses. Amelia quickly created a perfect rose, her elegance on full display. Meanwhile, Ray managed to summon nothing but a pathetic ice cube, as useless as Al thought his very existence was. Seeing this, Al swore under his breath, "I'll end that worthless bastard myself." After class, Ray followed the so-called ugly chick into the library, awkwardly apologizing for not introducing himself earlier. "I am also interested in Lydia's antimaterial theories," he said, catching her attention. She introduced herself as Alyssa, revealing that Lydia had been her lifelong idol. When Ray admitted he also loved Lydia from the bottom of his heart, Alyssa's excitement bubbled over, causing her hat to fall off. Embarrassed, she quickly apologized for getting carried away, but Ray noticed her hair for the first time. "Why hide something so beautiful?" he asked. She hesitated before revealing the reason. Her half-elf ears had made her the target of relentless bullying. Ray, however, thought they made her even prettier than Aphrodite herself. Alyssa turned red, flustered by his honesty, and muttered that he was surprisingly mature. Her words struck a chord, bringing back memories of Howard saying the same thing to him once. Later that evening, when Ray returned to his dorm, his roommate was waiting for him, an energetic guy who introduced himself as E.B. Armstrong. "I am not like those other noble morons," E.B. declared. "I believe in only one thing." Intrigued, Ray shook his hand, and the sheer force of their grip made them both realize they were cut from the same cloth. Without a word, they threw off their shirts, proudly revealing their gigachad physiques. Grinning like idiots, they declared their newfound bond as muscle bros. It was the start of an unexpected friendship, built on shared strength and mutual respect. The following morning, Ray was midway through his 30-mile run when the wind from his pace nearly lifted a girl's skirt. Realizing what almost happened, he jogged back to apologize, saying he should have run faster. The girl, surprised by his speed and politeness, introduced herself as Rebecca Bradley. She seemed genuinely impressed, calling his stamina incredible for so early in the morning. Later, while walking to school, E.B. casually mentioned that Rebecca was the daughter of the second highest royal family. "Be careful around her and Amelia," he warned. On his way to meet the principal, yet another girl crashed into Ray, this one as flat as a surfboard. He couldn't help himself and muttered, "Good thing there was nothing to cushion that collision." Before she could react, he quickly added, "But it's a pleasure to meet such a charming pigtailed lady," turning the moment around. She brightened up, introducing herself as Clarice Cleveland, claiming to be the girl loved by pigtails themselves. Ray, ever the smooth talker, said, "That must be a beautiful family name," despite having no idea who they were. Clarice seemed thrilled by the compliment, assuming they'd become close friends, but abruptly remembered she had somewhere to be and sprinted off. Ray just smiled, amused by how chaotic his day had already become. In the principal's office, Ray bowed deeply to Abby, his former colonel, who was now overseeing the academy. Abby smiled, her stern military demeanor softened as she recalled their time together during the war. "I hope you can enjoy a normal life here," she said, though her eyes betrayed the weight of memories they shared. By the end of the school day, Ray was set to duel Al. As soon as the match began, Ray parried Al's sword with effortless precision, forcing it into the ground and ending the match in an instant. But Al, too stubborn to admit defeat, charged at Ray again. This time, Ray struck back with surgical accuracy, destroying the wooden blade and leaving Al sprawled on the ground. Watching from the sidelines, Abby couldn't help but smile, glad to see that the Ice Blade sorcerer was finally experiencing something close to a normal student life. Later that night, Ray and E.B. were bonding in the most bro way possible, deep-throating their protein shakes like champions. Between gulps, Ray casually mentioned that he wanted to join 2 different clubs. E.B. laughed, calling the idea impossible, but Ray smirked and said he had a secret plan. The scene shifted to the Iron Dungeon, where a group of massive, intimidating men waited for Ray's arrival. As E.B. and the other members watched curiously, the club leader demanded to know why Ray was worthy of joining their environmental research club. The group of men, initially skeptical of Ray, thought he was too scrawny and lacking the bulk they expected. That was until the leader barked at him to strip down. Ray complied, revealing his ripped body and expanding to show off his true bulk. One of the guys, wide-eyed, muttered that Ray's abs were so massive, he probably had to pay property taxes on them. Ray smirked and casually explained that he'd trained in the backwoods, showing off his gold hunter license. As proof that he was one of the strongest, most powerful bulkers alive. Impressed, the leader immediately invited him to join their environmental research club. The men erupted in cheers, realizing their club was more of a mental asylum than anything else. A few minutes later, Ray found himself in a room full of women, and Rebecca was the leader of this particular group. He told her he wanted to join their flower planting club, explaining that, even in the world's deadliest battlefields, he could always find a flower blooming in the chaos. However, the ugliest girl in the room shot him a suspicious look, thinking he was just there to seduce Rebecca. Seeing the skepticism, especially since he was an ordinary, she decided to put him to the test. "Dina will evaluate your worthiness," she declared, leading Ray to the roof for what was bound to be an interesting challenge. Dina revealed that Ray's test was to clean the entire space within a week, wishing him luck as he started his task. On the first day, Ray dug up the weeds to clear the field, with Dina secretly spying on him from a distance. Once the weeds were gone, Ray began mending the ground, working tirelessly while Evie joked that she wished she was the hoe getting plowed by him, and Alyssa, more boldly, wished he would plant his seed in her fertile soil. By the third day, Ray had laid cement in canals to create walls for the different types of flowers. All the hard work was paying off, but Rebecca showed up with a strawberry cream pie, telling him she'd negotiated with the school to have them since she was the student council president. Ray couldn't help but think she was amazing for that, but she couldn't stop staring at his massive arms and asked if she could touch them. When he allowed it, she was in awe, saying they were the biggest and hardest man part she'd ever held. Ray casually explained he'd trained in the backwoods. On the fourth day, the garden was complete, and Dina, though reluctantly, admitted Ray had passed. Rebecca welcomed him to their club, and the entire ordeal ended with a weird mix of admiration and, let's say, more than a little infatuation. The next day in class, Professor Gray announced that their practical exercise would take place in the Kafka forest, and they needed to form parties of 4. Rose immediately grew concerned, wondering if Ray would end up alone. But Ray, remembering Abby's warning about a spy infiltrating their school, couldn't help but wonder what was going on. Just then, Evie piped up, asking to join his party. Ray hesitated, explaining that he wasn't great with sorcery. Evie, unfazed, grinned and said, "That's fine. Your body will make any wand explode." Looking around for a third member, Ray approached Alyssa and asked if she'd join them. She hesitated, calling herself as useless as a toaster. Ray, ever the smooth talker, said, "You're the toaster I need." She laughed and agreed. Just then, Amelia, curious, asked if there was still room in the group. Ray, with a mischievous glint in his eye, said, "I was planning on filling your opening from the start." The room fell silent, the awkward tension palpable, especially for the guy who'd just come back from rehab, who looked like he might choke on his own disbelief. Ray's group was shaping up, and things were about to get interesting. Inside the forest, the teacher, resembling a no-nonsense coach like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, explained the rules of their practical exercise. They needed to reach the center of the forest within 24 hours while collecting as many stamps as possible from the monsters hidden within. With a flare shot into the air, Ray and his group sprinted into the forest, adrenaline pumping. But just a few hours in, a monstrous creature lunged at Alyssa, its claws aiming for her head. Ray, quick as Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, swooped in and saved her at the last second. They quickly got into their battle stances, and Ray, channeling his inner Geralt of Rivia, rushed forward, slashing the beast in half with a single strike, earning the group their first stamp. By the time the night arrived, Amelia, who'd been watching in awe, asked, "Where did you learn all those survival skills and sword techniques? It's like you're some kind of Keanu Reeves in John Wick." She began to wonder if his stories of training in the backwoods were really true. Hearing her words, Ray was momentarily lost in thought, recalling that this forest was paradise compared to the battlefields he had come from. For a moment, he questioned if he was even allowed to enjoy his life, given that so many of his comrades had died. The group noticed his sudden shift in mood, but Ray quickly lied, telling them he was just tired. As night fell and they settled to sleep, Ray stayed awake to keep watch, recalling the words of his late master, reminding him to enjoy a normal life for once. The following morning, as Ray was navigating through the forest, he heard a scream echo in the distance. Without a second thought, he sprang into action, using just 40% of his speed to keep his movements ordinary. As he neared the source of the scream, he discovered an A-rank class monster had ambushed Al and his useless squad, who were already bound and helpless. Ray's instincts kicked in, and as he activated his innate code, he dodged the monster's attacks with reflexes that seemed almost inhuman. In an explosive leap, Ray soared through the air, piercing the beast's brain with a swift strike, killing it instantly. With his blade sheathed, he asked Al if he needed help, only for the worthless bastard to slap his hand away, claiming he had it under control. Ray raised an eyebrow, wondering if Al had learned some secret strategies at his AA meetings. Just then, Ray's group caught up to him, and as he turned to Alyssa, asking if she could free the useless morons, Amelia's eyes widened in disbelief. She had just witnessed Ray take down an A-rank monster with a single strike, and she couldn't help but wonder who he really was. From the shadows, a mysterious spy threw a dagger at the monster's corpse, resurrecting it and evolving it into an S-rank calamity beast. The situation escalated, and Ray knew things were about to get much more complicated. As the calamity beast roared, the cheap prostitutes in the vicinity screamed in terror, but Ray remained undeterred, still determined to kill the creature. At the same time, another group of students was passing by. When Clarice heard the monstrous roar, she peered from behind a tree, her eyes wide with awe. She had never seen a creature this massive before. Just then, Ray charged at the beast, slashing it with all his might, but to his surprise, the monster was unscathed. He wondered how it had evolved after dying. As the creature attacked, Ray managed to block its deadly claws, but when he attempted to unleash his ice powers, a flaming wall suddenly erupted from the ground, forcing the monster to retreat. At Amelia's command, Evie hurled a rock at the beast, and Alyssa propelled it with wind, knocking the monster in the belly. Before it could recover, Ray stabbed it with his sword, holding the blade in place until he sliced it in half, killing it instantly. With the monster dead, the group stood together, deciding to join forces. Seeing them as a team made Ray reflect on his old comrades. Meanwhile, Clarice, still hidden, watched everything unfold, her mind racing as she wondered just how powerful Ray really was. At the same time, the mysterious spy was still observing Ray from the shadows. As he realized just how special Ray was, the spy quietly disappeared without a trace. Within a few hours, Ray's group found the final checkpoint. After taking the stamp, Amelia jumped on top of Alyssa and started grabbing her body, but Evie wondered aloud if Ray was also capable of carrying them, thanks to his backwoods forest training. By the time the contest ended, the instructor announced that Ray's group was the winner. As Clarice cheered them on, she couldn't help but notice the envy in the eyes of the other students, all of whom were stunned to see Ray performing better than any of them. A few days later, Lydia was feeling a strange anxiety, realizing it had been 2 months since she last saw Ray. She quickly fixed herself up as soon as she heard he was coming. When Ray entered, he was greeted by a hot maid named Carla, and Lydia couldn't help but notice that she was the one looking up to him these days. Ray, however, was just glad that Lydia no longer felt the need to kneel in front of him. As they sat down for breakfast, Lydia told him that a powerful group had been abducting sorcery researchers, cutting open their brains to discover hidden sorcery. The gravity of the situation was clear, and Ray knew that trouble was brewing. She explained that the group was called Eugenic and warned Ray that they might try to lure him in, advising him to never release his lock unless his life depended on it. A few hours later, as they walked through the forest, Lydia couldn't help but wonder if Ray had made any new friends. Ray smiled and told her he had made the greatest group of deranged morons. Lydia, amused, told him to invite them over next time, thinking they must be really special to make him smile like that. When they arrived at a tree, Lydia mentioned that the magic sword fighting competition was about to start. She revealed that she had won the event 4 times already and asked Ray if he would consider entering. Ray, however, preferred to stay out of it, choosing instead to hide his powers and cheer on his friends. Lydia then pulled out a book from her massive milkers, explaining that it had been specifically adapted for a student. When Ray called her amazing, she begged him to keep calling her that, moaning in response. The next day, during his morning marathon, Ray sprinted past Alyssa, determined to start the day strong. But as her floodgates opened, he decided to stop and saw all the books inside her back. When he wondered where she was headed, she told him that she intends to visit the library, so having nothing better to do, Ray asked if he could go with her, but her floodgates were destroyed in that instant. So after changing her clothes to hide the stain, Ray thought she was cute and that he was jealous of her heart because it's pumping inside of her while he's not. While inside the library, Ray helped her to pick out a book and she told him that it was written by her favorite sorcery researcher, Dr. Answorth. But as they began to read, Ray discovered that Lydia's book was actually a book of pickup lines, and after leaving the library he tried using some of the lines on Alyssa, but Clarice was spying on them from behind a pillar and wondered why he had abandoned her already. As she began wondering how she would get her man back, Ray appeared before her and asked her to join them for lunch, but when she wondered if he was asking her on a date, the Gigachad said that he was destroying her floodgates as well. While they ate, Ray introduced Alyssa as his pinky toe, because, according to him, he usually bangs her on the coffee table at night. Classy, right? Then he turned to Clarice, describing her as so damn beautiful she looked like a masterpiece, which is why he wanted to nail her, literally, against a wall. Goddamn, Picasso would have approved. They spent the afternoon eating, chatting, and tolerating Ray's dumb jokes. By the end of it, though, the girls had enough and decided to ditch his ugly mug. Just as Ray was about to curse his luck, the best girl, Amelia, appeared out of nowhere, looking like Aphrodite herself. Ray bolted up to her, wondering why she was so dolled up. She sighed and confessed it was because of the endless noble events she had to endure. It's exhausting, she vented, apologizing for spilling her woes. But Ray, ever the smooth talker, told her it was better to get it off her chest, especially when her chest was that heavy and distracting. Damn, even Marilyn Monroe couldn't compete. Amelia's mood shifted when she heard that Clarice and Alyssa had just left. Jealousy flared in her eyes as she demanded Ray accompany her to the mall, leaving him with no choice but to follow her lead like the obedient idiot he was. Inside the store, Amelia was on a mission, trying on outfit after outfit, each one more stunning than the last. Ray, naturally, couldn't resist showering her with compliments, pulling lines straight out of his Discord playbook, even tossing in some awkward English for good measure. "IPR to my heart," he blurted, earning a giggle from her. When she asked why he seemed so comfortable around girls, he shrugged and admitted he'd grown up surrounded by women, so it wasn't something he'd ever overthought. Flustered, she darted back into the dressing room, her mind swirling as she wondered why his arms felt so damn warm. Could she ever trust him enough to reveal her secret? Meanwhile, in the forest, Al was channeling full-on supervillain energy, setting trees ablaze and screaming like a lunatic about how he'd burn Ray's ugly face off the planet. It was like a scene straight out of a bad soap opera, but with fire. The next day, Ray was at the gym, stretching his muscles alongside a group of beefed-up bodybuilders, probably imagining himself as the next Dwayne Johnson. After the session, he made his way to the gardening club, where Dina handed him a spare key, mentioning that the other members had taken the day off, leaving him in charge. Alone in the room, Ray let out a bizarre yes, 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 no, 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 shish, under his breath, as if rehearsing lines for a one-man comedy show. That's when he noticed her, Dina, standing there with an aura that could only be described as grown-up plot armor. Trying to recover, he awkwardly wondered if she liked bunnies, but the moment turned even weirder when she admitted she usually wore this metaphorical armor to hide her vulnerability. Blushing, she begged him to forget what had seen, leaving Ray more confused than ever in a world that seemed to thrive on chaos. After arriving on the rooftop, Rebecca eagerly began showing Ray the flowers she wanted to plant, her eyes lighting up with every description. But Ray, sensing something was off, asked if she was upset. She shook her head and gave a bittersweet smile, admitting that she was just relieved to have someone to talk to. None of the other club members would spend time with her because she came from one of the three noble families. It felt isolating, like being stuck on a pedestal no one wanted to climb. That's why she was so glad to have him in their club. He was the only one who treated her like a real person. Meanwhile, Al, in full conspiracy mode, wondered aloud if there was anyone from the third noble family attending Arnold Academy. Rebecca casually revealed that the Allens had only ever attended Diam Academy, and their daughter was gearing up to compete in the Magic Chevalier contest. She added, almost as an afterthought, that this girl was the only one who could rival Amelia's insane skills. The next day, Amelia found herself locked in a duel with some sheep escort who barely knew how to hold a sword. The instructor announced that only the winners of each duel would qualify for the sword fighting contest, which lit a fire in Amelia's already competitive soul. With one swift strike, she sent the poor girl's wooden sword flying, earning herself an easy victory. But instead of basking in the applause, Amelia turned her gaze to Ray and called him out for a duel. The room fell silent as the challenge hung in the air. Ray, to his credit, didn't back down, stepping forward with a confident smirk. As they faced off, the instructor began the match, and for a moment, it felt like the entire academy was holding its breath. Amelia charged forward with relentless speed, her blade flashing like lightning. Ray managed to parry her attacks, but he quickly realized she was faster than him. Too fast. Forced to leap away, he tried to regroup, but Amelia's sharp tongue cut through the tension. "You're a mysterious man," she teased, "and damn good at handling your wood." Her smirk widened as she added, "Maybe I'll feel you slapping me with that sword." Fueled by her taunts, she attacked again, her strikes landing on his blade with every ounce of strength she had. As Howard's rigorous training flickered in Ray's mind, he parried her sword with precision. For a moment, it looked like Head gained the upper hand, and Amelia felt the match slipping away. But then, as Ray's powers surged unexpectedly, his grip faltered. The sword flew from his hands, and he collapsed to his knees, stunned and defenseless. The crowd froze in shock, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. The instructor broke the silence, declaring Amelia the winner, but she wasn't buying it. To her, it felt like Ray had thrown the match intentionally, and as she replayed his last move in her head, she couldn't shake the question, who the hell was this guy? Later that day, as the group sat down for lunch, the atmosphere was lighter but still charged with curiosity. Evie leaned forward, asking how Ray had become so skilled with a sword. He leaned back, a hint of nostalgia crossing his face, and revealed that he once had a master, a woman who had taught him everything, from sorcery to swordsmanship. The table grew quiet, everyone trying to picture the enigmatic figure who had trained him. Just as the conversation was about to continue, Al stormed over, slamming his hand on the table so hard that plates rattled. "Ray," he growled, his voice brimming with challenge, "I am calling you out. A duel. Right now." The group exchanged uneasy glances, the tension mounting once again as Ray locked eyes with Al, the sparks of a new battle already igniting in the air.